It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA. We are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. Well, we spent a lot of the show today because there was so much audio about how the Democrats, in fact, I think I can safely say, 2 weeks from the election, 2 weeks out, that the Democrats aren't going to change.
Right.
That there's not going to be any reflecting. There's not going to be looking at any, anything and say, can we change here? And I believe there's less enthusiasm to change on the issues than there was even in 2016 after they lost. When you had, it was a much bigger story, wasn't it? Well, we need to go to flyover country.
Yes.
We need to talk to the people that actually legitimately wear the camouflage hunting outfits, the hunting cap, and actually carry the guns. We need to actually talk to the people who have coached football that understand what a pick six is. But on whether it's illegal immigration, whether it's the immigration problem, whether it's deportation, the Democrats went nuts yesterday. They went crazy yesterday on the radical transgender movement.
Yep.
And we'll have some of that audio coming up with Nancy Mace talking to an ABC reporter who she just smokes. It was just greatness. And you see Hakeem Jeffries back to being the leader of the Democrats in the House. And so we look at this and say, okay, what the biggest outlier really was Seth Moulton. Representative Moulton that came out and just said, we're getting killed down. And he got blasted. Yeah. And he actually started walking it back a little bit. Well, what I mean. So I don't see them changing at all. And this latest poll that came out, the Echelon poll, it's brand new, the 2028 Democrat primary poll. Who do Democrats wish to run in 2028 against whomever it is? Because if you're going to do the list for the Republicans, top on the list would have to be J.D. Vance, right?
Yeah.
J.D. Vance would be, again, he'd be number one.
Right.
I can see that DeSantis would be in there if you look at the possibilities. I think Nikki Haley will be in there with a couple percentage of the votes.
Yep.
That would happen. And because it's this week, Matt Gaitz might get double figures.
Maybe.
But you're talking about, when you talk about, for example, J.D. Vance, you're talking about a winner because they won. So he's in the winning side, which is logical for him to be there.
Right.
Since Trump can't run again. DeSantis, again, a success story because of Florida. Nikki Haley, because she just ran and she'd get a couple percentage of the votes.
Yeah.
And then who else for the Republicans? I don't know. I don't know who it would. I really don't know who it would be. But the fact that you have J.D. Vance in there sort of tempers down, because it would be basically an incumbent presidency, and you are the incumbent vice president.
Right.
It's a whole different ballgame. Now for the Democrats. With 6% of the vote, Democrats want to see Minnesota Governor Tim Walz run. With 6% of the vote, Democrats want to see Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg run in the primary in 2028.
He got a full 6, did he?
Got a full 6.
All right.
With 7% of the Democrat vote, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. With 8% of the vote, California Governor Gavin Newsom. And finally, with 41% of the vote, I think I'm reading this wrong. I think it's who they want to win the primary. That's what it is. not who they want in. It's a Democrat primary poll. It's a primary poll. Sorry, I read that wrong. It's who they want to win. So 6% want Tim Walz, 6% want Buttigieg, 7% want Shapiro, 8% want Gavin Newsom to win the primary, and with 41% of the vote in,
Drum roll, please.
to show that the Democrats are not changing, with 41% of the vote, Democrats want Vice President Kamala Harris to win in 2028.
All right.
That poll just out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm up for it. Please make it happen.
Wow. You saw that, the whole thing about her being governor of California. Saw that story out there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. That's the whole list right there for the Democrats. That's the whole list.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it goes.
They have.
Tell me who else would run.
Okay, they have it here. They have it. They have the Republican too. Okay, here it is. All right. So Walz was 6%. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez 4%.
All right.
Gretchen Whitmer 3%. Pritzker in Illinois 2%. Andy Beshear 2%. Cory Booker with 2%.
Wow.
Jared Polis 1%. Wes Moore 1%. John Fetterman under 1%. Warnock under 1%. Unsure 16%. Okay.
Unsure how much?
16%.
Wow.
All right.
All right.
Now, for the Republicans, 37% would want to see J.D. Vance get the nomination. 9% Ramaswamy. See, I was right here. 9% Nikki Haley. 8% DeSantis. 5% Ted Cruz. 5% Marco Rubio. 2% Sarah Huckabee Sanders. 1% Josh Hawley. 1% Tim Scott. 1% Glenn Youngkin. Under 1% Kristi Noem. Katie Britt. Doug Burgum. Elise Stefanik. Wow. Gates didn't get any votes. Unsure, or that someone else 3%, unsure 18%.
Okay.
Probably too far out. But
Of
I
course,
I just find it interesting with the losers that Kamala Harris is such a dominant lead. Think about this. Her lead is more dominant than J.D. Vance over Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley for second place.
Probably some anger, backlash in that poll. It's too soon. They're angry she didn't win. They want the rematch.
So since they're angry, so they're not angry.
Because they know Trump won't be running. They know he's not going to be in the race. So, and they voted for her. So, yeah.
Oh, Biden wasn't on the list because he could run again, too.
He could. Technically.
Oh, my God.
Technically, he could. And there's nothing wrong with him, so I'm sure he'd be fine. If he wanted to. Yeah.
All right. Trump team responds to the fraud case decision delay. Mershon has delayed it indefinitely, whatever.
Yeah.
And let me find it here. What he said was, I thought I had it. I don't have it now. I thought I had it there. Where'd it go? Okay.
Spokesperson again.
No, I lost it. I didn't want to play an audio cut there.
All right.
But here it is. I'm trying to get it here. No, okay, they don't have it. But they were saying they were happy with it.
That the Trump defense team was happy.
The defense team happy with it.
Right.
The problem is, there's been a ton of people trying to figure this one out. I saw that our colleague Mark Levin said, "No, the Supreme Court can get involved in it now." that they can get involved in it now and get it done. Will Mershon want to keep it for 4 years? Will that be what he wants to do?
Well,
I don't know.
And Alvin Bragg agreed to, that it must be postponed, and so.
Oh, that's exactly.
Yeah. So if they're looking at this, and the year, and the year 2029, which sounds like a long time away, but actually it's only a little over 4 years away, then this is, this would be the play. For an Alvin Bragg, you hang this over the head of Donald Trump. This ain't over. That's the play. Andrew McCarthy had a write-up in National Review on it, and, he makes the point, because he points out that the Trump team is celebrating this, the delay is a victory. And he says that if the president-elect is given the choice of either a 4-year suspension of the case or sentencing that Trump can eventually appeal the conviction, Trump will choose the former. And Andrew McCarthy goes on to write that if it is Trump himself who asks for that outcome, all of the people complaining about the unfairness and harm to the public interest of having a criminal case hanging over a sitting president's head for 4 years will have to mute their outrage. And I think Trump is going to ask for that outcome, which is why his lawyers are already equating postponement with victory. Well, given the two choices, that's really all they can do. They're not going to look, they wouldn't choose the sentencing so they can move on with the appeal, knowing the appeal could take years anyway. There's no telling how long the appeal could take. So if you're suspending this until, let's say, 2029, then you've got a lot of time to determine what your actions could be while he can be effective as president. You certainly wouldn't ask for them to expedite the sentencing ahead of him being seated again as president, sworn in again as president. So, to Andrew McCarthy's point, I would argue, given those two choices, the only one of those two choices is to delay the sentencing if those are your choices, which wouldn't include, what Mark Levin was saying. There's action that he could take and have the Supreme Court intervene here, and if that's the case, then they take that action.
But I think that Andrew McCarthy is making too much of these charges hanging over Trump's head.
Yeah.
That doesn't affect anything.
Right.
If Trump's okay with it,
right,
no matter what happens no matter what they do afterwards, this is not going to pass.
No. And
the appeal process.
Right.
But he seems to be, and I saw a couple of, but Trump, this will be hanging over Trump's head. What does that mean? It was hanging over Trump's head. He won the popular vote.
Well, the thing is that you're the alternative of those two choices is to ask for the sentencing to go forward, and the defense team isn't going to do that,
right?
Because then you're getting into with the ability to appeal the case beyond that. Well, then you can't appeal the case in an expedited manner, most likely. And that means it would intervene with him being president. I don't get the point at all.
Yeah,
it didn't make sense
because he just won an election with this being over his head. It didn't matter.
Right.
He's not running again. If they come and Trump says, "Look, I want to get rid of the federal government and the mortgage business," the argument, he's got these criminal convictions hanging over his head that will become a conviction once they pass sentence. And so I didn't understand Andrew McCarthy making that point either.
I didn't.
Or they're tricking Trump into. I saw a couple. They're tricking Trump into, delaying it. What do you mean tricking? I don't understand. It's like, are you reading this thing legally? And Andrew McCarthy, especially, is a very bright guy. I read the entire book, Ball of Collusion, and great book. But I don't understand his observation why would Trump care if it was hanging over his head? What does that mean? It's hanging over his head. Well, I got to deal with it later. Well, so he's dealt with so much. Does he even care about that? When he looks at this and says, it's going to, this is no chance in hell of passing. And by the way, Andrew McCarthy believes it's going to be reversed.
Right.
He believes it. So
right.
I didn't understand what he was writing there. I really didn't.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Well, I would need clarification.
Well, because you delay the sentencing. I mean, if you're, again, going to delay the sentencing until after his presidency, then that's when you want any appeals process to take place. Of course, Trump wouldn't want, the opposite. He wouldn't, or want the alternative. And that was the other choice of having him sentenced so he could move forward with an appeal. Well, no. He's 2 months out today from being president. They're not going to get an appeal done in 2 months, and Andrew McCarthy knows that.
Right, so the appeal would be running through his presidency,
exactly, and
which then would be talked about. Why do you want that?
You would never want that.
Right.
It is a victory of the two situations that might take place. Again, not including the consideration from for what Mark Levin was talking about, and that is their ability to go to the Supreme Court and have the Supreme Court deal with this. But that, again, any of these you want off the table until after he's president.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
A return of atmospheric rivers across the western U.S. USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey.
We have this atmospheric river starting to set up, and we have a long fetch of tropical moisture originating far back into the central Pacific. That will be reaching Northern California and the Pacific Northwest during the mid to late week period, and in fact likely extending through the weekend and into early next week in some form.
Precipitation totals could reach between 10 to 20 inches over the course of the week.
In some of the orographically favored areas, which would include the coastal ranges of Northern California, and then eventually extending inland to the Sierra Nevada as we start to gain elevation and move up into the higher reaches of the Sierra Nevada and the Cascades.
Accumulations measured in feet. Lower elevation precipitation could lead to flood conditions in places. This storm is expected to also provide heavy precipitation in the northern Rockies and Intermountain West. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, you have Pritzker in Illinois coming out and saying, nope, your federal government's not going to come in here and, take out illegal immigrants. We played earlier the Democratic strategist saying it's, you can't even remove criminals and terrorists because you don't know who they are, so you can't remove anything.
Right.
Then you've got Los Angeles passes a sanctuary city ordinance in wake of the Trump election victory. So everybody on the left, this is really the day that I came on the air and went, okay, they're not going to change. Even in 2016, by this time, they were saying to themselves, okay, what do we have to do? We knew it wasn't going to happen. We laughed at it when they said, well, we need to go to the Midwest and we need to talk to people. They're flyover country, and, we should be driving through there and talking to them and finding out, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. They're not even trying to do it this time. You had a couple of outliers saying, well, where we're going is wrong. But the rest are like, nope, let's double down on the insanity that lost us this election.
Right.
Pretty amazing.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara along with Eric Harley.
Gary, want to welcome a new sponsor, Truckers Paradise. Drivers, you have to check this place out. Wow, their big grand opening is on the way, but they are open, and it's located 4321 North I-35 in Gainesville, Texas. That's on the west side of I-35 there in Gainesville. And it's a great location, and, man, you've got to learn more about it. You can go, in fact, I've been up there, toured the place early, in fact, and they did a soft opening recently. They're going to do their big grand opening very soon, but they are open for business. Truckers Paradise, wow, what a layout. I mean, it's an incredible layout there in Gainesville, Texas. Had a great conversation with those folks, in fact, and you can hear that, in fact, on our podcast. Dean Ash, the CEO of Truckers Paradise, was on with me recently. This Saturday, they've got some live music there at Truckers Paradise in Gainesville, Texas. Oliver White is going to be performing live Saturday evening, and then later that evening, Red Clay Gypsies will be performing live. So go check it out at Truckers Paradise. There is a $10 cover charge on that, but check it out. It is a great location. If you're a trucker, you need to check out Truckers Paradise. Again, 4321 North I-35 in Gainesville, Texas. And you won't be able to miss it, in fact, right there on the northern edge there of Gainesville. It's right there. It's just a great location and a really great, sounds like a great event coming up this Saturday night with some live music. Again, Oliver White and Red Clay Gypsies. And learn more at truckersparadise.com.
All right, we were talking about President Trump and how to get out of the entire legal mess caused by the lawfare of the Democrats. Mark Levin was talking about it, and this was after Mershon indefinitely delayed proceeding with the sentencing of the case, and Bragg wants him to hold on for another 4 years and wait till Trump gets out.
Right.
Mark Levin gave another option yesterday when he was on Fox News.
For the American people, we have what's called the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution. That means a district attorney and an acting state elected judge cannot interfere with the United States Constitution or federal law, or for that matter, the functioning of the office of the presidency. Just imagine the mayhem and the chaos that would exist if we allowed 12 to 14,000 district attorneys to do this. Number two, you look for federal jurisdiction, which we have. This whole case was built on a phony federal campaign violation that breathed life into a state law, a misdemeanor that had died, to create a felony. You have Hope Hicks, who was providing information to the court, to the jury, and that would be a violation of the recent Supreme Court ruling in the immunity case. So there's three federal areas. And then the fourth area, you have the DOJ opinions in 1973 and 2000. They said an indictment hanging over the president. You can substitute that with a sentencing hanging over the president, or the right to appeal hanging over a president while he remains in office would damage the institution of the presidency virtually to the same extent as an actual conviction. Now, what do you do? What you do is you look at Supreme Court precedent. The Supreme Court needs to step in. What happened in Bush versus Gore in 2000? The Bush lawyer said, we have an out-of-control Florida Supreme Court. They're allowing the counting and counting and counting of ballots until Gore wins. We need to put an end to this. So, to me, President Trump's lawyers, depending on what Marchand does, although I do it now.
Oops. Go ahead. Go put it back up.
Versus Gore, you have an overwhelming case of a violation of the federal Constitution, federal law, an overwhelming case of a violation of a Supreme Court immunity ruling, an overwhelming case of a violation of the Department of Justice policy for half a century, and say to the Supreme Court, Court, you're the only ones who can help us here. Help our Constitution. We just had an election. Put this thing back in the box. Fix it before it's applied to another president of the United States, and the court will either take it or it won't. And I'm betting the court is.
Will take it. He's betting they won't take it. So there you go. Sorry, having some problems with the little circle.
Well, I think it is. You know, it could be one of the options the Trump defense team is looking at. We haven't heard that officially, but it certainly could be one of the options. I guess we'll see what happens. You know, again, we don't know what the thought was from Andrew McCarthy when he wrote the piece on this yesterday. afternoon at National Review. But I think Mark Levin clearly is right. He understands the law very well, as we all know, and this is something that it deserves that attention. We're talking about, this is the will of the people for him to be president. And these charges that were thrown at him, these 34 counts, are nothing. And then you look at the process of how this played out procedurally with Bragg and Rashawn basically teaming up to make everything happen. It was insane. We shouldn't be here.
I think Levin agrees with us that this thing, without question, is going to be thrown out. It's when is it going to be thrown out?
Yeah, right.
And, Bragg wants to extend it, to hold it over the president's head. We already asked the question, well, what does it even mean? It's does the president, does the incoming president really care about it?
Right.
From what he wrote, again, what his staff wrote, it seems like he's viewing this as a victory, which, of course, it is. And the one thing that when Mark said that, a sentencing is the same thing, is you can look at it as the same thing as an indictment, same thing as a conviction, whatever. That made sense to me constitutionally. But then, as he said, they could either take it or not take it. Which means it's not a case whether it's unconstitutional, it's whether the timing is right for them to get in. That's what it seemed like he was saying to me. So, but there you go. All right, an audio cut of the day. All right, we actually have 2 audio cuts of the day. You ready for the first one?
All right.
This is the GOP, Nancy Mace, Representative Mace, basically introduced a bill that would say men can't use women's restrooms in the Capitol. As, of course, the Biden administration reversed it. Here's an ABC reporter running up to her to make sure that, he can cross-examine her on it. And it gets to be pretty beautiful here. Here we go.
Here she goes. Here's Congresswoman Mace. Congresswoman Mace, can I ask you a question as you walk here? So the question is, with your piece of legislation about banning women from using...
100% yes.
My question to you is...
It doesn't go far enough. I'll be filing more bills.
You have said that it was created in response to Congresswoman-elect McNamara.
100%. But
should legislation be created targeted at one specific person?
It doesn't mention anyone in the legislation, but
you've said it was aimed at her.
No, I have said it's a result of this. I'm not going to allow biological men into women's private spaces. I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no. I'm not going to stand for it. And the Speaker said it would be in the House rules package. If it's not, I'll be ready with a motion, a privileged motion to force a vote on this. This is not okay. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And I'm not going to allow any man in any female private spaces.
Now, Speaker.
End of story. And by the way, I'm getting death threats from men pretending to be women. Why is it that these crazy people, the insanity, the radical left, are willing to kill women over a man's right to be in a women's restroom?
Speaker Johnson has said he wants to treat every new member with the words dignity and respect. Forcing this congressperson to go into a male restroom, is that dignity and respect?
Forcing women to share private spaces with men is not dignity and not respect. And I'm absolutely going to stand in the way of anyone who thinks it's okay for a man to be in our locker room, in our changing rooms, in our dressing rooms, in women's bathrooms. And in fact, if you agree with that, you're crazy, because that's not okay. It's not okay.
Congresswoman, he backed away.
Yep.
Now, you notice how he kept saying, he started up by saying, isn't it, wrong to not allow women into women's restrooms?
Yeah, right.
And then he said it again. He said it again about the dignity of women using women's restrooms.
Yeah.
And it's just, just to show, and the reason I'm at the audio cut of the day, a couple of reasons. Number one, the Speaker said, look, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, you can't change it.
Right.
And he plans on banning it. He just said, you treat everybody with dignity.
Right.
And dignity does not mean, well, you're not treating with dignity because you won't let me as a man use a woman's restroom. Sorry, that's not what dignity is. And so... and the other point was the bluntness of it, because Republicans weren't saying this a couple of years ago. Well, we think that, no, be blunt. No, sorry. Stop the misogyny. Stop the harassment of women.
Yep. And it was a perfect set of responses by Nancy Mace.
It really was.
Nailed it.
And we've accused her a couple of times of just going too drama in some things, but that
wearing
was
the
perfect.
T-shirt with the scarlet letter thing was like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, you've made your point and you're a fighter, and we get that. But again, in this case, she's not backing down and shouldn't back down from any of this. They want you to believe they, in fact, are pressing for the man to have the rights in the women's spaces.
Right. It's not got nothing to do with women.
And Hakeem Jeffries in calling, implying that there's bullying going on. That's right, women. Quit bullying the men.
Yes.
That's basically what he's saying, that women are bullying men.
And that's the other thing. The misogyny of the leadership and the members of Congress, except maybe for Moulton. He's the only one.
Yep.
They still are doubling down on the women hatred. The misogyny of the Democratic Party continues.
Full on.
It's amazing. It's just amazing they don't learn anything. Now, our favorite audio cut of the day, because we have two, comes from The View. And we had talked about it yesterday or the day before.
We mentioned this.
We mentioned it, that they've got, and number one, first off, The View gives the incorrect stereotype that we wholly disagree with, that women are idiots. They're emotional idiots who cannot connect the dots, who have no critical thinking skills, whatever. The View is also the first show that I've ever seen, ever, or heard or seen, that have lawyers that are monitoring in real time everything they say, so when they come back from a break after not doing something or doing something, the lawyers give them a legal letter, a legal notice that they have to read. It happened again yesterday. They were talking about Matt Gaitz, apparently did not complete or give the full story. The lawyers monitoring The View during a commercial break came up and said, you have to read this when you go back on the air. Listen to this, because Sunny Huston has to read it. And the look on her face is, you're treating me like a damn child.
Yeah.
It's greatness. Here we go.
On screen. Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaitz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism, that DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
She looks
like she's in pain.
Oh,
like
I mean,
physical pain.
It's just beautiful, but it's amazing. This is how, just if you're a Democrat, how bad it is. I do not know of another show ever that have had lawyers monitoring it, and as many times as they had after they come out of a break, you've got to read this legal note.
Because they're correcting something she said just minutes before this. She had said it just minutes before it, and the lawyers had to issue that. So It happened minutes after whatever she said about Matt Gaitz. The lawyer said, here's the correction. Here's the legal note. You have a legal note. Wow. They had to have had a meeting at some point. Okay, what we need is lawyers in the control room.
Yes. Listening to every word.
With headphones on.
These idiots say.
No distractions.
That
By
could
the way,
cost us cash.
Man, what did you do to deserve that? You're forced to watch The View every day and pay attention to it.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, on today's show, really, I mean, I was, to me, it was actually yesterday where I went, oh, okay, with Hakeem Jeffries now being put in and to have the Democrats in the House again. And with everything that was being said on CNN, MSNBC about the immigration problem, about the radical transgender movement, all these issues, these top issues, they haven't changed their opinion at all.
Nope.
In fact, they're doubling and tripling down on them. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly quick. I don't think this is going to be effective. Other ways, it's going to get ugly starting in January if the administration, the new administration, does focus in on what they want to do.
Right. Yeah. No, it's going to be nonstop.
They're going to have some successes. It'll be interesting to see what the successes are and the things that they don't have as much success on. But at least they're going where they have to go. They have to go here.
Yep.
They've got to go where they're going.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.